Everyone possesses a shadow, and the less it is acknowledged in one's conscious life, the darker and more powerful it becomes. This shadow isn't simply an idea or metaphor, it is a psychological reality that can shape every aspect of our existence, from our behavior to our relationships and even our worldview. If a weakness is recognized, there is always the possibility of correcting it. But if it's repressed and hidden from awareness, it never improves. Instead, it festers, in the background, growing silently until it erupts unexpectedly, often during times of stress or vulnerability. In any case, it forms an unconscious obstacle, sabotaging even our most sincere efforts, no matter how well-intentioned they may be. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst and pioneer of analytical psychology, was one of the first to deeply explore this concept. He identified two types of shadow: the personal shadow, our unknown individual dark side, and the collective shadow, the hidden darkness of society. Let's begin with the personal shadow. Jung describes it as the thing a person has no wish to be. It includes all the parts of ourselves we prefer not to see, our fears, insecurities, desires, and impulses that don't align with our ideal self-image. These are the unpleasant aspects we tend to ignore or conceal from ourselves, qualities we consider weak, shameful, or even immoral. We might deny our envy, suppress our anger, or disguise our arrogance with false humility. The personal shadow doesn't just sit quietly, it becomes visible in moments of intense emotion, fear, or intoxication, times when our conscious defenses are lowered. One might unexpectedly lash out during a friendly exchange, or feel overwhelming jealousy toward a friend's success. These moments often leave us wondering, where did that come from? The answer is the shadow. When we reject what we hate, we often project it onto others. We criticize others for the very traits we deny in ourselves. We label people as selfish, manipulative, or aggressive without realizing that we too possess those same tendencies, however deeply buried they might be. While it's possible to be partially conscious of our shadow and keep it in check, many people avoid confronting it entirely. When this happens, the ego is unaware of shadow behaviors and loses control over them. In such cases, the shadow gains autonomy, manifesting as sudden anger, irritability, or cruelty that seems to come from nowhere. Jung repeatedly emphasized the importance of recognizing the shadow in therapy and everyday life. The shadow is not just a container for everything negative or destructive, it also includes untapped potential. Jung explained that the shadow may include helpful traits like natural instincts, sound judgment, creative energy, and grounded insights. Qualities we may have suppressed because we were told they were unacceptable or dangerous in childhood. Marie-Louise von Franz, one of Jung's closest collaborators, offered a balanced perspective. The shadow is not necessarily always an enemy. He's just like any person you have to get along with. Sometimes you yield, sometimes you resist, sometimes you show love, whatever the moment requires. The shadow only becomes aggressive when ignored or misunderstood. Within the shadow lie various strengths and possibilities. If these remain unexplored, they can stifle our growth and leave us psychologically impoverished. For example, someone might believe that being assertive equals being rude, thereby suppressing confidence and honest self-expression. This can lead to missed opportunities such as promotions, deeper relationships, or financial progress. Later, when this person encounters someone assertive, they might feel envy, guilt, or even contempt, emotions that deepen the darkness of the shadow. These buried qualities must be brought to the surface and experienced, not suppressed. It is the ego's responsibility to surrender its pride and embrace these traits, not to indulge them blindly, but to understand and integrate them consciously. Dreams are another place where we confront our shadow, typically represented by a person of the same gender. These dream figures often criticize or challenge us, mirroring aspects of ourselves we don't want to see. The emotional result is often shame, confusion, or stunned silence. Yet these dreams are incredibly valuable. They show us the inner work we must do. Identifying the shadow's content and integrating it into our character is known as the realization of the shadow, or simply shadow work. It is the beginning of a long, difficult yet rewarding journey of self-education. One must undertake deep, psychological labor, similar to the mythical labors of Hercules, to reconcile with the shadow. Through shadow work, we learn to observe our outer reactions, practice emotional honesty, and explore our dreams for insight into the unconscious. This journey brings true enlightenment, not by suppressing darkness, but by illuminating it. As Jung wisely said, there is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. This means that real strength lies not in pretending to be perfect, but in embracing our full humanity, flaws and all. Rather than chasing perfection, we should aim for psychological wholeness. This is the core of individuation, the lifelong alignment of ego and self that integrates the conscious with the unconscious parts of our psyche. Confronting the shadow can be frightening, even painful, but truth brings freedom. Self-exploration uncovers forgotten traits and hidden distortions, helping us become more authentic. Sadly, most people are unwilling to reflect deeply, even on their known moral flaws, let alone examine the unconscious forces driving them. Sometimes, the shadow doesn't just originate within us, it also comes from the world around us. This is what Jung called the collective shadow, the unseen darkness within society and culture. It represents ideas and behaviors that conflict with our shared values and ethical ideals. The collective shadow is vast, complex, and often horrifying. It includes historical harm caused by humans, violence against others, environmental destruction, exploitation, and its lingering impact over generations. The collective shadow becomes visible when societies project evil onto external. Groups ignore ongoing suffering or cling to denial. It surfaces in war, oppression, genocide, cultural erasure, and denial of responsibility. It also wears subtler disguises, such as forced cultural conformity, the suppression of indigenous languages, or the shaming of alternative identities. These can create a world that feels sanitized on the surface, but is deeply Orwellian at its core. Like all shadow content, the collective shadow can influence us deeply, even when we believe we are good people. It expresses itself in both public atrocities and personal struggles. Depression, self-hatred, cultural shame, revenge fantasies, addiction, and spiritual disconnection. In Christian symbolism, this darkness is portrayed as the devil. To be possessed by it is to lose our sense of humanity and compassion. Jung believed that true morality lies in awareness of both our goodness and our capacity for evil. When a busy society avoids confronting its shadow through denial or projection, the darkness festers. It doesn't disappear. It grows, quietly shaping the next generation's values. And so, we must assume responsibility, not just as individuals, but morally, spiritually, and politically. Only by owning our darkness can we liberate others from carrying it for us. Let's consider the challenge of responding to large-scale historical trauma: slavery, war, colonization, genocide, systemic injustice. These wounds echo across generations, often in silence. People are told to move on or forget the past, yet the pain remains unspoken and unresolved. Denial is common, especially among those who fear the discomfort of accountability. But healing requires more than apologies or symbolic gestures. True shadow integration involves deep societal engagement. This means rewriting textbooks, reforming institutions, elevating marginalized voices, and reshaping culture. It's not a one-time event. It's a continuous process of reflection, truth-telling, listening, and action. This painful journey includes naming and facing the unspeakable for both victims and perpetrators. A process is only complete once suffering is expressed, heard, validated, and responsibility is claimed. One of the most powerful examples of the collective shadow is Nazi Germany. Ordinary people, under a regime fueled by hatred and propaganda, participated in unspeakable atrocities. Many were not monsters by nature. They were swept into collective darkness through fear, manipulation, and the unacknowledged power of their personal shadows. They did things under that regime they would never have imagined doing otherwise. This shows how the personal shadow can become a gateway to the collective shadow. That's why personal shadow work is not just for individual healing, it is also an act of collective responsibility. If we face our own darkness honestly, we are far less likely to be seduced or possessed by society's shadow. We become more conscious citizens, more resistant to manipulation, more compassionate, more courageous. We become lights in the darkness. As Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh once said, if we practice mindfulness, we will know how to look deeply into the nature of war and, with our insight, wake people up so that together we can avoid repeating the same horrors again and again. The war is in us, but is also in everyone. Everything is ready to explode, and we are all co-responsible. The journey of transformation begins with the personal shadow. We must be radically honest with ourselves, observe our emotional reactions, analyze our projections, and reflect on our dreams. This allows us to retrieve and embody the hidden gifts within, instead of being controlled by suppressed fears and unexpressed desires. As a result, our relationships, our careers, and our inner peace improve. Then, we turn to the collective shadow. This is harder to see, yet even more important to confront. Awareness prevents us from blindly participating in society's worst habits. It empowers us to take responsibility for injustices, denied truths, and dangerous patterns. Owning our darkness, both individually and collectively, is the key to healing. Telling the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is the only way to confront our past, redeem the present, and build a better future. If we fail to do so, the shadow will grow darker, more dangerous and more powerful, until it explodes, repeating the horrors of history. But by courageously facing it, we break the cycle, for ourselves and for the generations to come.